actually have a full fibre sonic network that actually services both the SCADA world and the IT world, because we now said, well, we don't need two separate networks. We do have a separate network for our AMI, but it wasn't specified by the OT. It was specified by the metering department because that's their expertise. It was implemented by our technology department. We then looked at our Twitter feeds, all our communications to our customers. That was actually specified by our communications department. Our technology department implemented it. We then looked at how our control functions worked. The control room specified it. Our technology group implemented it. Our distribution management system, our OMS and our GMS, which are all integrated together, are not actually owned and or run by the operations department. They're run by our technology department. There's no separate DNS department, no separate GIS department, there's no separate OMS department. It's the technology department. They run it. They have an SLA with us. We specify what we want out of them. If they don't meet it, I go and have a chat with my CEO and say, well, you haven't met the actual KPIs. The CEO then says, bad boy, you don't get paid as much. And we actually work it that way. And it works very, very well. It's a very difficult thing to do because a lot of people's egos get hurt because they love their own little empire. You actually got to get over that. It's a cultural thing. It's a difficult thing to go through, and I've got to admit, it was a very interesting birthing procedure for our utility. But we're now at the other side. We now actually have a functioning technology group. We have a functioning architecture. Yes, we still have a lot of legacy systems that we're working through, but that's something that we can't just click our fingers and things disappear overnight. That's the architecture, that's our future that we're going to go through. We're actually going to work slowly through that to actually get our systems all aligned to one philosophy in one direction. So where's you now? The things that I'd like to impart to people is the consolidation of services. We saved millions and millions of dollars in our utility because we consolidated our services. We put specifications on those services, of course. So when there's actually two or three competing things, we know which one goes first. And everybody agreed with it. So everybody sat down in a big circle and said, you know, who goes first? And everybody agreed on it. It took some time to actually agree wholeheartedly, but that, you know, network comes first, then response, then this, and then this, and we actually work through it. Enterprise management. Yes, it works. We actually look at it on an enterprise level. And we actually manage it on an enterprise level. So we actually look at us as a whole, not as operations, not as a technology department, not as an asset management department. We look at us as a whole. And when you do that, enterprise management becomes very, very easy, and people actually agree, okay, my services actually help your services, so yes, we'll work together. Separation of ownership and requirements. Very important. Who owns it and who requires it are two different things. My technology department actually owned an EMS, but I gave them the requirements for it because I'm the end user. Same thing with everybody. Who's the end user of metering? A number of groups, so they actually specify the requirements. I made a comment yesterday regarding that we actually have to replace all 700,000 of our smart meters. Yes, we will. Not right away, but we will have to replace them because that was in our old model, because our old model was specified by one group only. That one group only had one thought. They wanted to actually bill our customer, not actually operate a network. We only just went through the process of actually talking. We had 1,200 sessions through the company, making sure we understood every group's requirements. We've actually written up a 30-page specification of our new meters, our new MDM, our new architecture to actually support these type of things. So when you actually take away the ownership and requirements, you actually become able to actually move forward very, very quickly. And you actually get a better product in the end. Meeting the customer's expectations. You hear all about smart grid actually saying, hey, we're going to do this, do that. Make sure you follow through on it. Our customers really came to us, really put Toronto Hydro through the ringer because we put in 700,000 smart meters and we only delivered to half of them. We only delivered on the fact that we'd given time of use. We didn't deliver on a lot of the other promises that were actually given when the installation originally came through. Our government is actually really upset with our regulator because our regulator is not actually using all that data to the level that they should have. So it's actually delivering on those promises to our customers is very important because it's really strange. The customer, you think one day is going to be your boss the next, and that is a very true statement. Utilisation of the technology and opportunity. We heard about putting in AMI and no one uses it. Well, I'll tell you, we use it all over the place. We replaced more than 3,000 of those 60,000 transformers because of AMI. We actually set our 10-year asset augmentation plan based on our AMI. I actually changed my storm response because of AMI. Took a lot to actually get the actual technology and actually start understanding the technology, but it's there, we utilise it. We utilise it a lot, and it's saving us a lot of money. Okay, it costs us a lot of money, but we're now utilising it. How do we actually get ready for the next stage though? Changing how our IT and OT work, that's only stage one. First stage, long way to go. How do we actually get ourselves ready for the next wave of change? We're still working through that one. Lastly is actually training our next generation. We're actually doing a lot of work to try and actually get our next generation appearing. We're actually working with a couple of colleges and universities close by Toronto to actually start training and getting people enthused and interested in actually coming and working for us and actually getting them and changing the curricula to actually meet the requirements that we need in the future. Trust me, you just don't find these people. They don't grow on trees. You have to actually build them. You actually have to influence early so you've actually got the people that you need to move forward in the future. I love Sherlock Holmes. Great quote. You've got to actually work out what you really need before you go out and buy it. Take the time, sit down, work out what you truly need for your network. It was quite funny, I had a vendor gave me, our company got a vendor in and they actually gave us this beautiful smart grid roadmap. I looked at it and I ripped it up and threw it back at him and said, we're not the United States, thanks, we're actually Australia. They're actually using the United States maturity model in Australia. They are very different systems. Trust me, AMI doesn't really work so well in Australia because the networks are completely different. You've got to actually look at it in the context of yourself, not everybody else. You can't just blindly approach this in one way. This works for us. How it works for you might be very different, but you've actually got to look at it yourself in your own way, looking at your own situation and your own culture, and see if it actually will work for you. Don't blindly say, oh, try a hybrid, did it, well, we can do it. It might not be the best for you, so really think about how this actually could actually spur some conversation inside your utility, not just blindly following what other people have done, because we're in North America, we have a different place, we have different requirements, we have a different network, we have a different climate. It might not work for you, but it's something just to think about. So, thank you very much.
Communication change. When listening to you, I think one of the key changes that have happened is a cultural change in the organization. And I think part of what you've been describing, you can find a lot of that in many places in this region as well. What would be the lessons learned terms of changing this culture, in terms of making sure this is happening in the name of a stronger business objective for the corporation?
Lessons learned. Make sure you've got executive buy-in. It's probably the best one. We sat down with our executive, we explained why we wanted to do this, we explained what would be the benefit of doing this. We didn't have any facts, we didn't have any real figures because you only learn those things after the fact, not before the fact. You know, if anybody says, oh well, you know, I can guarantee you're saving 20%, look, very subjective. What 20% are we going to save? So we actually we were very lucky. We actually had my CEO is actually very progressive. He actually came in from the unregulated side of the world, so he actually thinks outside the box compared to most utilities because we are normally regulated heavily. So he actually saw it as an opportunity to actually change how we do things, but possibly earn extra revenue because any reduction in OPEX is actually an increase in either CapEx or profit when you're talking regulated space. So talking with our executive, actually holding their hand, because you got to remember executives are strategy people. They think high level. They don't get right down into the little nitty gritty of the bits and pieces. So we sat down, we talked with our executive, we actually showed them what we were thinking about, and they actually went, great, go do it. So we went ahead, we sat down with all the key stakeholders, we actually said, well, what's our plan? So we then actually took the plan back and said, Anthony, who's our CEO, I said, Anthony, does this look right for you? And he said, yes. And the approval was given and away it went. Constant hand-holding, constant information to those executives made it a very, very painless thing. So any one key learning is making sure that you really keep your key stakeholders in this process up to date and understanding what's happening, because without that, everything can go very wrong very quickly.
Okay, any more questions?
Hi, it's Rob Rickard from Itron. Just interested, from this project deployment, which aspect would you say gave you the most pain? So obviously there's a lot of change here. And then the second part of the question is, what was the main benefit that you got from this entire project? In terms of what function or particular feature you believe gave you most benefit, whether it be financial payback or improvement in customer service, what you really believe was the biggest benefit?
I'll take the first question first because it's the more entertaining of the two. The simple fact is ego. Ego is probably the biggest and most painful thing to come across, because you've got to understand, IT don't normally play with OT too often. It was actually, hey, my stuff's better than your stuff, my stuff's more important than your stuff. It was actually breaking down the egos that these people had and built up over many, many, many years of, you know, we're OT, we're more important than the IT people, or I'm IT, I'm smarter than you OT people. And it was actually getting those two people, those major two groups together and actually saying, guys, stop. Sit down together. You actually find out that they actually talk the same language. They actually understood the same things. Actually, most of the time they used the same technology. But one might have been ruggedized, one wasn't. One they stuck up a pole, one they in a server room. And when they actually sat down and worked out, they actually became reasonably good friends. And now, because they actually live all as one together under one banner now, they've actually meant that we've actually got more resources. So on the same thing, actually the biggest problem actually became one of our biggest assets. So what we learned out of it is now we actually have a lot bigger asset pool. So when I actually need SCADA response, I don't actually have to worry just about SCADA room. I can actually call on the guys that used to be the old IT, because they understand the servers still, they understand the routers, they understand actually how to put all the stacking, they actually understand all the kinds of communication function of SCADA, because they're now one group. So on the same thing, our question 1 and question 2 merged together because the most difficult part with the ego, best benefit out of it is now that I actually have a response and I now have a bigger pool of assets. Sorry, I'm calling people assets, that's terrible. But we've actually got a big response pool, so rather than me having to wait just for a SCADA response, I can actually just call and say, hey, who's available? I can just grab a person, they'll come in and actually have a look at it. So on the same thing, that's what came out. It was actually very, very beneficial in that response, that we actually got a better response for the company. Financials there as well, but the biggest one was definitely that we got a better response for the company as a whole.
Okay, thank you very much, Lucas.
Thank you.